Hello and welcome to the Sunday Short Story Podcast. I'm your host, Aubrey Adrianson, and with me today are Steve and Amanda Hayes. Today, I will retell the story of the Tower of Babel from the Bible, and Steve and Amanda will react to the story in ways that we've all either seen children react to this story or in ways we believe children would react to this story. The purpose of the show is to point out some problems in these kinds of stories and how they are not useful in teaching children morals or important life lessons, while having a little bit of immature fun at the same time. Today's story will be retold from the Bible Hub, and you can find a link to it on the Godless Family website. So the story of the Tower of Babel. All people of the earth, way back thousands of years ago, spoke one language. And as they traveled westward, they found a broad valley in the land of Babylonia, and they made it their home. Then they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and thoroughly bake them." So they had bricks for stone and asphalt for mortar. And they said, "Come, let us build a city and a tower whose top will touch the heavens, and thus make a landmark, and we will not be scattered all over the earth." But when Jehovah came down to see the city and the tower men had built, he said, "See, they are one people, and all have one language. This is but the beginning. And now nothing which they plan to do will seem too difficult for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language, that they may not understand one another." So Jehovah, which by the way is another name for God, scattered them from there to all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. Therefore they named it Babel, which means confusion. For there Jehovah confused the language of all the people on the earth and scattered them all over the world.
Wow.
So, what questions do you have?
So, way back, a long time ago, everyone spoke the same language and lived in the same place?
Right.
So they all lived in the same city?
Well, the story says that the people were moving westward, but it doesn't say if there were other cities or settlements. The way the story is written, it sounds like maybe all of the people in the world were in that one place.
So, how many people are we talking about?
I don't know.
And where did this take place?
Well, it's just a story, but the Bible was written by people who lived in what is now the Middle East, so we can assume that they're referring to some place in the Middle East.
And did they all look the same too? Because now people look different, and sometimes that's based on where they're from.
Because the authors of these stories probably never traveled the world, it is likely they probably thought everyone looked the same. But we now know that humans evolved in Africa and spread out across the world from there. After early humans settled into their new regions, they began to evolve slightly different genetic characteristics because those environments were different, which is why there's so much variety in how we look.
So, if this story is about the first people, and the author says the first people lived in the Middle East, then the author didn't know anything about Africa, Asia, North and South America, and other places like that.
Right. The only thing we can assume is that the authors traveled enough to know that people are spread out and spoke a variety of languages. This story is their attempt to explain why something like that would happen.
Oh, I see. So they didn't know anything about evolution or people moving from Africa to the rest of the world, so they just said that God did it.
Right. And they came up with this story to explain why God would do something like that.
So I don't really understand why the people were building the tower. Did they really think they could climb to heaven?
Well, back then people literally believed that heaven resided above the sky, above the clouds. We now know that above the sky, so to speak, is outer space. But early people didn't know that.
Okay, so why did God have a problem with it?
That's a really good question. It would seem that God did not want people, the humans he created, to be able to do certain things.
So he wanted people to be stupid?
I don't know if stupid is the right word, but he was certainly concerned that people would be able to do anything.
Oh, yeah. If you think about it, if people are able to do anything, then they wouldn't need a god. So he was probably worried that they wouldn't worship him anymore.
I think that's a good interpretation of God's intentions. So what did we learn today?
God is a very jealous and mean God.
And he was afraid that people wouldn't worship him anymore.
And early humans didn't know much about the world around them or outer space.
And early humans made up stories that really don't make a lot of sense.
Good job, kids!
Woo!